educational. So we can learn a thing about someone today. And today's person is Rasputin. Ooh, let's go. Oh, this is on YouTube as well. You can say hi, YouTube.
On a cold winter night in 1916, Felix Yusupov anxiously prepared to pick up his dinner guest. If all went as planned, his guest would be dead by morning, though 4 others had already tried and failed to finish him off.
So funny how my teeth
The
look
Russian
when I'm
monarchy
drinking.
was on the brink of collapse, and to Yusupov and his fellow aristocrats, the holy man they'd invited to dinner was the single cause of it all. But who was he? And how could a single monk be to blame for the fate of an empire? Grigory Yefimovich Rasputin began his life in Siberia, born in 1869 to a peasant family. He might have lived a life of obscurity in his small village, if not for his conversion to the Russian Orthodox Church in the 1890s. Inspired by the humbled monks that wandered endlessly from holy site to holy site, he spent years on pilgrimages across Russia. On his travels, strangers were captivated by Rasputin's magnetic presence. Some even believed he had mystical gifts of prediction and healing. Despite Rasputin's heavy drinking, petty theft, and promiscuity, his reputation as a monk quickly spread beyond Siberia and attracted both lay people and powerful Orthodox clergymen. When he finally reached the capital, St. Petersburg, Rasputin used his charisma and connections to win favor with the imperial family's spiritual advisor. In November 1905, Rasputin was finally introduced to Russian Tsar Nicholas II.
3 times a year?
Nicholas and his wife Alexandra devoutly believed in the Orthodox Church, as well as in mysticism and supernatural powers. And this Siberian holy man had them transfixed. It was a particularly tumultuous period for Russia and their family. The monarchy was barely clinging to control after the Revolution of 1905. Their political struggles were only intensified by personal turmoil. Alexei, the heir to the throne, had a life-threatening blood disease called hemophilia. When Alexei suffered a severe medical crisis in 1912, Rasputin advised his parents to reject treatment from doctors. Alexei's health improved, cementing the royal family's belief that Rasputin had magical healing powers and guaranteeing his privileged place on the royal court. Today, we know that the doctors had prescribed aspirin, a drug that worsens hemophilia. After this incident, Rasputin made a prophecy. If he died or the royal family deserted him, both their son and their crown would soon be gone. Outside the royal family, people had mixed views on Rasputin. On one hand, peasants regarded him as one of their own, amplifying their often unheard voice to the monarchy. But nobles and clergymen came to despise his presence. Rasputin never ceased his scandalous behavior, and they were skeptical of his so-called powers and thought he was corrupting the royal family. By the end of World War I, they were convinced the only way to maintain order was to eliminate this sham of a holy man. With this conviction, Yusupov began to plot Rasputin's assassination. Though the exact details remain mysterious, our best guess at how it all unfolded comes from Yusupov's memoirs. He served Rasputin a number of pastries, believing they contained cyanide. But unbeknownst to Yusupov, one of his co-conspirators had a change of heart and substituted the poison with a harmless substance. To Yusupov's shock, Rasputin ate them without ill effect. In desperation, he shot Rasputin at point-blank range, but Rasputin recovered, punched his attacker, and fled. Yusupov and his accomplices pursued him,
so the bullet was going to... Oh, the bullet hit.
Finally killing Rasputin with a bullet to the forehead and dumping his body in the Malanevka River.
That works.
But far from stabilizing the monarchy's authority, Rasputin's death enraged the peasantry. Just as Rasputin prophesied, his murder was swiftly followed by that of the royal family.
Literally, the whole royal family got assassinated after that. They killed the whole royal family. So whatever he said, it came true.
downfall of the
This is the story of Anastasia, by the way. Anastasia. They say that she, as a young girl, one of the royal family's kids, that she managed to run away and they never found her. And now we don't know if that is true or not. There was this one old woman that said that she is Anastasia, the one that ran away, that survived, the royal family kid, but you never know if it's true or not.
Russian monarchy was a product of the monk's curse or the result of political tensions decades in the making. Well,
yeah, that's
we
a
may
movie,
never know.
Thiran. Yeah, the movie comes from the true story.
To learn more about the revolution that
Anastasia
toppled the
movie,
Russian
yeah.
Tsar and his family's regime, check out this video on one of the most controversial
Anastasia was
figures
one
of the
of
20th century,
the,
Vladimir Lenin, subversive hero
Anastasia's
or murderous
story.
opportunist.
Sorry. We need a short one. Princess Anastasia story. We need a short video. Maybe this one. No, he talks a lot. Oh, 40 minutes. See, this is the problem. All these videos. Okay, fake. The messed up real story behind Anastasia. Okay, this is.
Anastasia is a heartfelt
Anastasia,
story
okay,
of a
that's how you
journey
say
back
it.
home. But the truth is, the real-life version is nothing
I
like
hate when videos have this generic sound in the background. Like it's not a like the video that we just watched about Rasputin. It's a real person talking, but this feels like it's a generic sound, like a computer sound.
seen in movies. Stay to the end to find out how Anastasia sparked a 90-year-long investigation.
I hate it.
If you're new here, make sure to subscribe
why
to
it
the
sounds
things
like
and
this.
give
Is
our
it a real
video
person
big
or do
thumbs
they
up.
use
Now let's check out the disturbing real story behind Anastasia. The actual version. Let's first talk about the movie version we all know and love. Anastasia isn't your typical princess movie, and the story itself focuses on the history way more than
it's
any
louder,
other
but
heartfelt
it can't
princess
be.
movie ever made. Anastasia was the last surviving child of the Russian royal family, and in order to be reunited with her grandmother, she joins two con men to escape Rasputin, who wants to end her life. In the 10-year-long process, Anastasia also
That is like okay, that's the Disney story.
finds the love of her life and eventually becomes reunited with her grandmother. None of the people know she's actually the real Anastasia, but 10 years after the siege, rumors spread that she might still be alive. The story is pretty intense and full of interesting moments. However, it's also full of historical inaccuracies that have nothing to do with how the real story of Anastasia actually unfolded. Real story. Before we talk about the actual story, we
DreamWorks.
should
Okay, not
probably
Disney.
mention that Anastasia was
It says
never
Disney
a
on
Disney
top right.
princess until now. This seems to confuse a lot of people, but the truth is, Anastasia was one of the few princess-worthy movies that was produced by Walt Disney, but distributed by 20th Century Fox, not Disney. In 2015, Disney finally
that's it.
bought Anastasia's rights, and after all these years, she finally joined the ranks of their Disney princesses.
Okay,
But there's
now
more
it's
to the
explained.
actual storyline of this movie than you might actually know. Anastasia was actually a real tragedy. The film
Yep, like they made it that Rasputin is the main villain and that she actually survived and there's like a happy story for her when in reality, first of all, it could be all not true. Like she didn't survive, she died immediately with everyone else. Or if she survived, she never got the fame she did and she never was found again because she was scared.
makers might have
Even let
decided to
people know that
totally
she
change
is.
her story, but the truth is, a lot of people don't know the disturbing real deal about the real life of Anastasia that actually has nothing to do with Anastasia herself and everything to do with the royal family, Russia, and World War I. Let's first begin with some background information. Anastasia's story begins in the 18th century when Europe was one of the most powerful continents in the world. It's a painful tale of a family that had to go through way too much. Almost
Yeah.
every country had a royal family, and most of these families were related to one another. With a lot of political agendas and liberal reforms came a lot of assassinations that were often witnessed by kids. It really wasn't a pretty sight, and it definitely isn't anything that a heartfelt Disney movie would actually show. In 1913, the Romanovs celebrated 300 years on Russia's throne, and the Russian royal children were pretty popular. The emperor had 4 daughters named Olga, Tatiana, Marie, and Anastasia, who were absolutely gorgeous.
By the way, did you know that the king was actually German? All the descendants back in the day, like all the royal families were Germans.
But when their youngest daughter, Anastasia,
He was the son
born,
of Queen
the emperors
Victoria
were
the First.
disappointed. They were hoping for a son that would take the throne. However, Anastasia was often described as a bright and cheerful child who was also a pretty good prankster according to the history books. It's been noted that she would often trip servants, trick her teachers, and she even camouflaged a rock into a snowball during a snowball fight.
Oh my
She
God.
seemed like a pretty normal kid, right?
Excuse me? She literally took a rock, made it into a snowball, and hit the person with it? Yeah, sure, normal kid behavior.
But since daughters weren't able to be the heirs to the throne, the crown went to the youngest brother, Alexei. But what society didn't know was that Alexei had hemophilia, which is a disease that causes bleeding joints. Because of that reason, Alexei had to be carried just about everywhere until the disease ultimately ended his life. His death crushed the family, and things seemed to have taken a darker turn after. Of course, the story doesn't stop there, but remember, Anastasia isn't the main character in this tale. After the First World War, liberal government temporarily came to power and everyone seems to have been relieved. But only a couple of months later, the government was violently overthrown and the Communist Party seized the power to the throne. In the process of this violent seize, the imperial family, which also included a teenage Anastasia, was killed. The family was brought in a cold basement under the promise of being protected. But instead
so
of being
sad.
safe, the executioners
That was so sad. They woke them up in the middle of the night, pretending that they're gonna help them. They took the whole royal family with the kids and they put them in a bunker. And they said that they're gonna be safe there. And then they put them all in line and they killed them.
ended the lives of every single member of the family, including the dog. Yep, that's right. The real Anastasia wasn't the last surviving member. She didn't go on a decade-long
More
quest
sad
to
about a
reunite
dog
with her
dying.
grandmother. The truth was, she was brutally killed and her life ended with a message. But she wasn't the only one. Tens of millions of others have died along with her in this process of this violent government seize, and it's known as one of the
Russia, bro.
cruelest acts of the century. The dynasty came to an end. The message was sent to the world that the revolution would go forward under the Communist Party. 90-year-old mystery. But Anastasia's story comes with even more mystery to it, and there is a valid reason why the movie version of her story changed the narrative. In the years following the execution, people started wondering whether Anastasia and her youngest brother were actually still alive. Many people came forward stating that they are actually the Grand Duchess, as they said she was still alive because she was shielded by family jewels sewn into the clothing for safekeeping. While this doesn't seem likely, it definitely sparked plenty of rumors and investigations. In 1991, the
Attention
forensic
seekers,
team
like in
identified
today's reality
Anastasia's family
shows?
members and servants. However, Anastasia's and her brother's body were still nowhere to be found.
Oh,
Pretty
that's
weird,
interesting.
right? Anastasia's
No body
mystery inspired
means
books,
mystery.
plays, and movies, which is precisely why 20th Century Fox gave a happy ending to her story. But the 90-year-old mystery came to an end in 2007 when a new DNA analysis conclusively identified the bodies of Anastasia and Alexei. They were found in a site nearby, still close
There
to
is
the
a body.
families.
Okay,
And
never
that's
mind.
the real
Take it back.
disturbing story of Anastasia. That's it for our video.
So there
Don't
was
forget
a
to
body
subscribe
and
to
a
the
DNA
thing.
and everything with science today. Oh man! So apparently all of it was bullshit. I mean, she could be ashes. That's true, but I don't think they did that back in the day, with especially royalty. You know, for royalty, usually what they did if royalty was murdered in a way, they would either be like in a grave on the site where they were murdered. They would make a memorial site for the royalty, or they would put it in a place where the rest of the royalty is. You know, they would never dare to like put a royalty in any grave or anywhere. At least that's what they did. All right, that was something that we learned about Anastasia as well as Rasputin.